Cops of Reddit, what is the most what the fuck happened here moment you've experienced? Former cop. Was a rookie deputy and got this call that a man got his foot caught in a garden tiller and was bleeding profusely. It was a 20-minute drive running code, so I had time to plan out my actions. I figured the ambulance would be about 10 minutes behind me, so I was gonna tourniquet above the knee and I assumed he'd be unconscious and or needing CPR. I get there and it's a big ass farm building with two guys just standing there smoking. I grabbed my medic bag, not a medic but it had tourniquet, C-collars, gauze etc. I run towards them to ask where the patient was and they were white as a ghost just smoking while pointing behind them. I went inside and behind a big John Deere tractor was a huge PTO-driven tiller about 7 feet wide and 3 feet tall. There was my victim, with his back against the tractor tire. His left leg was sucked in the tiller and wrapped twice around it with the sole of the shoe next to his face and toe pointing towards the left. His femur shot out underneath the tiller and was beautifully white with no blood. He looked up at me and said, "Can you help me?" Now keep in mind, I'm 21, thought this was a garden tiller and assumed I'd be able to do something, but I was completely out of my element. 2 ambulances, the rural fire department extrication team, a welding company to cut the machine apart on scene, a helicopter and a surgeon that came to amputate on scene later. He was free. I'm taking a slightly different approach in answering this question. A couple of months ago, I got a QA, questionable activity call. It's a catch-all for anything suspicious. The caller stated she believed someone had snuck into her backyard, climbed up onto her second-floor deck and then left an imprint of their dick on her sliding door. I show up to the call about 5 minutes later and she's mad at me because I didn't schedule an appointment to come over and her kids saw me. She didn't want her kids to think something bad had happened. After we get past her anger towards me for showing up, she shows me the glass sliding door in question. In all fairness to the caller, there was a sizable smudge and imprint on the glass. However, the imprint looked nothing like any penis I've ever seen. In fact, the imprint looked really similar to the dead bird laying on the deck next to the door. When I pointed out the dead bird and explained my belief that no dick had been placed on her door, the caller became incredibly irate and told me she moved to our city because it was supposed to be very safe, but now she was thinking of moving away because naked people throwing dead birds at her house was more than she could handle. Realizing I would not be able to rationalize with dick bird, I left and wrote my report. Some people don't deserve to call 911. Late to the party, but my favorite so far has got to be the tale of the UFO/aliens. I was a cop on the res for a while and had my fair share of crazies. One night, I'm out driving around and I get a call from dispatch. There's a UFO out in one of the farmers' fields. Okay? So I get to the house and talk with the guy. We know each other, he doesn't seem to be that loony. I turn my spotlight onto said field and sure as shit, there's something not quite right there. It's metal and shit. So I go bopping through the furrows and hoping my scardiness isn't showing because this is freaky. It was an autumn night with the wind howling and clouds blowing overhead. I get closer. I have one hand on my holstered gun and the other shining my flashlight. I was rehearsing what I was going to say to our new overlords and then my brain finally clicks as to what the fuck it actually was. A wad of those stupid Mylar balloons. All blown up and caught on some weeds. I'm talking like 20 of those fuckers, just chilling and scaring the shit out of me. I grabbed them and walked back out to the farmer. He started laughing and then I did too. I handed them over to him and got back in my squad, still shaking. The sad part was, he passes away a few years ago, and his family gave me those deflated balloons that he had kept. I have them in my basement now. This is my uncle's story, not a cop, but the call was sent to the fire department instead due to the strangeness. The truck was sent on a call for an unknown disturbance, which basically means anything in the world. They get sent an address and that's pretty much it. Truck drives down the street looking for this address and they get to the end and all they can see is an abandoned lot with nothing but bushes. Even though they can't see anyone, they have to get out and investigate, so my uncle and a couple of the guys get out of the truck and start walking around with the usual fire department call out. They didn't hear anything for a while and were about to pack it in as another pointless prank call when my uncle walked past a bush and heard rustling. He looks over and sees a man standing kind of awkwardly behind a bush. "Hey Mr. Fireman, did you call 911? Uncle, yes sir." My uncle steps a bit closer and realizes how man is buck-ass naked and standing at a strange angle. He motions to another firefighter that he found the caller and goes behind the bush to begin assessing. He is a firefighter/paramedic. That's when he realizes that the man has, what he refers to, a fucking bunny tail on his butt. Of course they try to get the man to explain why he had called in distress and what was going on. After a bit of avoidance, the man finally admits that he had taken a toilet brush cleaner and shoved the handle up his bum. Honestly, no idea why anyone would think this is a good idea generally. Being the enlightened individual that he is, he chose one with a hook on the end, to hang up in a bathroom? What my uncle and the other firefighters assumed was that the hook had gotten stuck on something internally because they couldn't pull it out, and it caused the man significant discomfort when they tried. My uncle left the man with another firefighter, getting his information, and went back to the truck to call for an ambulance. Of course at this point he always mentions that he walked around the truck to see the rest of the company trying to silently die of laughter out of view of the bushes. When the ambulance arrives, my uncle meets them with a grin on his face and tells them to brace themselves before walking them over to the bushes. They assess the man and conclude that there is no way for them to remove the toilet brush in the field and that they have to admit him to the hospital for surgery. The only problem was that they couldn't figure out how to get him into the gurney without causing him to move in a way that caused him more pain. They end up throwing a blanket over him and the firefighters help maneuver him into a sort of downward dog/mountain position with his bum in the air to keep the toilet brush at the right angle. At that point my uncle decided that the fire department was done with the call and the paramedics could handle it from there, and loaded up the company onto the truck. As they began to drive away, he says they were loading this guy into the rig as we drove off, and the last I saw of him was that blanket falling off and that damn bunny tail of his sticking straight up in the air. My uncle did follow up on this call with a friend at the hospital. The brush was removed surgically due to the hook getting stuck on something internally and causing the man to have some serious health complications. He has way more stories due to being a working firefighter since he was 18 in Southern California, 62 today. I used to be a cop. We got a call from a guy who claimed to be the victim of a robbery and was incapacitated in his home and had only just managed to reach his phone and call us. We arrived to a trailer home that was totally empty except for a man in hardcore fetish gear tied to some sort of sex swing. I mean, there was nothing else in this house except the gimp tied to the sex swing. Nothing, no furniture, not even curtains. Okay dude, what the fuck? Sex gimp? Well you see, officer, I hired 2 Asian hookers to spank me while I was in the swing. Nothing illegal there, no sexual acts, just some spanking and they leave. Well, the girls arrived, tied me to the swing, then, 2 Asian guys showed up, beat the living shit out of me. Then pulled up a U-Haul trailer and stole literally everything that I owned before leaving me hanging here with my cell phone because they said they knew nobody would believe my story anyways, but the cops would probably chase them for a murder. I still don't know if I believe his story, but never found any evidence to suggest that he was lying either. I just didn't find anything at all. One time we got a call about a minor wreck in a highway corridor. We get there, I'm handling the accident. 100 yards down there is a car on flats. And another further down from that. Unrelated to the accident. One of the drivers walked back to us and told us a sketchy guy had been stopping at these cars to offer his help in fixing the flats. The theory was that he threw something on the road to flatten the tires so that he could help and get money from the drivers. I'm stuck at the back end of this mess, on the radio trying to get another unit to detain the shady guy. All of a sudden I look over and there's a guy in nothing but a hospital gown and an M4 hanging out of his arm, just tootling along the shoulder. The nearest hospital was several miles away, so I have no idea how he covered that distance with nobody noticing. So here I am with 1. A car wreck, 2. A guy possibly flattening tires on purpose, and 3. An escaped hospital patient. All completely unrelated, on a major highway late at night.